public hearing on Tuesday, September the 19th, 9:15 in the Commissioners Courtroom in the Brazos County Administration Building, 200 South Texas Avenue, Suite 106. The court will hear comments on the proposed tax increase for 2023. Interested parties are invited to attend said hearing and present their cause, if any, for or against the tax increase for 2023. So let's begin with public. Jody Quimby.
Okay. I understand the no new revenue rate from last year's common knowledge resulted in about a $20 million collection of additional revenue that you might not have expected or budgeted. Although the proposed rate is less than last year's rate, it's indicated to bring in $16 million above what was collected last year, above the 20 that was collected above the budget last year. So I'm just here to ask you to collect no more than what you need. Since a no new revenue rate collected $20 million extra last year, I'd ask you to agree on a rate that's close to or at that no new revenue rate. It's just a brain dead decision as far as I'm concerned. You've got the money you need. You've got a reserve. I don't know the term that you use, whether it's reserve or unallocated. There's a pile of money that you're sitting on that tells me you don't need more than what your budget requires. So please agree on something that's closer to that no new revenue rate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Carlisle Frazier.
Thank you, Judge and Commissioners and folks. I'm Carlisle Fraser. I'm a Emergency Services District Commissioner in Brazos, South Brazos County. At our last meeting, we adopted a no new revenue rate. And when I think about my friends and other folks, they don't pay much attention to who they vote for, and they don't pay much attention to what goes on in things like this. And I think most people would be horrified if they knew what we know, why you all are here. At our ESD meeting, and Commissioner Dave right here served with me, we had to approve a no new revenue rate just in the last couple of weeks, because we've got to run a really tight ship, just like you guys have to. And I applaud Commissioner Aldrich, because I believe you were the only one that stood up for us. I'm asking you all to go out there and talk to your friends and people you don't know and make them aware of what's going on. The same thing for voting. If you guys complain about the way our country's run or our county, it's our own fault, because we're voting for the wrong people. Please use our monies responsibly. I know you try, and thank you all for your service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Kappa.
Mark Kopic. First of all, thank you all so much for the work you do. I know there's all kinds of behind-the-scenes stuff we'll never know about, and probably most all of it thankless. I appreciate you all. Well, I came down here today because I'm retired. I'm not coming here to ask for a lower rate for my own purposes. I've got everything I need. Got a house, car, boat, all paid off. I don't care. I don't have any debt. The increase isn't going to affect me any. I got plenty. I'm here for people who can't come up here and talk to y'all because they are working 2-3 jobs. They paycheck to paycheck. They tight with what they have saved. Maybe they don't have enough to cover a big unexpected expense. I meet these people all the time, and talk to them, and things are tough for folks with this inflation and the way the economy's been. And they can't come down here and do this. They couldn't even fathom trying to take off work and missing 2 hours of pay or whatever to come down here. I'm here for them. And I'm urging you and assuring you of my strong support in y'all paring that rate down to the absolute bone, just like most people, many people in this county have to do. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. That is the last participation form. Do you have another one?
You should have a bunch.
I thought that, oh, 9:15 there, okay,
Your paper, put them together.
okay. Fred Brown.
Thank you, Judge, Commissioners. I applaud you for the pressure you're under right now because, as you know, I've been there and I've done that. But I hate taxes. I hate tax increases. I've got a property out on the end of 1179 that's our vacation rental that we rent to people. And my taxes between just the county and the school district is $850 a month. So I've got to make $850 a month in rental income just to pay my taxes, not including, payments on the home and the utilities and everything else. The proposed tax rate that 4 of you voted on would increase our property taxes by $15.5 million, even assuming the county spent 100% of the budgeted amount, which hasn't happened in the last 10 years. Then they would be taking $2.5 million more of our money than they need to fully fund this budget. According to the budget materials you all received, the Brazos County Auditor is estimating an annual budget surplus of $20 million for the year that will be ending September 30th. Last year, 2 of you predicted that the no new revenue rate, not raising our taxes, would have dire consequences for Brazos County. Well, apparently that didn't happen. So I'm asking you to not increase the tax rate. I think you have plenty of money. We all need help, with rising food costs and gasoline costs and everything else. We're up against the wall, retirees especially. So thank you for your time, and I hope that you make the right decision.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Catherine Baines.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Vians. I'm from Precinct 4, and I am here to oppose this tax increase. My husband and I are retired. We spent our entire working lives to pay off our property, and we're proud to have been able to do so. But our taxes are now $17,000 a year. We could sell some of our land to pay an entity that is operating as a for-profit entity, but we don't think that's fair, and we are totally opposed to this tax rate increase that you have submitted, 16.9.
Okay. Paul Baines.
Good morning,
Morning.
Judge, Commissioners, folks. Yeah, we moved here 14 years ago from Philadelphia. We're glad we're in Texas. Think of all the other people that are looking to retire and move down to Brazos County. Well, people retiring here are a great group of people to have because they contribute to the school taxes, but they don't use the services. Perfect. Well, it's going to be harder if taxes continue to increase. People are going to look at it and go, I may have another alternative location that's still close to Aggie land, if you're an Aggie, that I can still get into town from the surrounding counties. So I think that needs to give some serious consideration in light of the fact that you should all be congratulated that somehow or other you got $21 million more without raising the tax rate last year. And to also go against this whole situation, I keep thinking about There's a young man and just bought 9 acres of land down the road, and we were just having a discussion last week. He wants to build 2 buildings on this property, one to live in and one to work from a hobby perspective. He's seriously downsizing the sizes of those properties. As he said, I'm in my 40s. I'm doing this because I saved money. He goes, I hardly need any mortgages for this. The land is paid for. Yet, I'm going to have to pay rent to the county. I'm going to have to adjust what I want to do. Personally, I could use another 3,000 square foot building, a 3,000 square foot building in addition to the ones I have on my property. I could afford to do it. I won't, because I can't afford to rent, or to have that rent that I would have to pay the county be added to when, although my taxes are frozen, they would increase if I did that. I mean, I had my taxes increase because I had bought some steel from Hilco Supply down the road and built a little cover so I wouldn't have to stand in the sun on my own gun range. Why am I paying taxes on a piece of shade? With that, I want to thank you very much. And again, congratulations on being able to increase an amount of $21 million over your budget without that increase. Thank you.
Sir, could you state your name for us? You didn't start.
Paul Vias.
Dorothy Sacca.
Hello, my name is Dorothy Saka, and good morning, Judge and Commissioners. I just wrote down some thoughts about the budget, and it's just a reminder that every time you raise property taxes, you affect someone's ability to stay in their home. So it's not just about roads, bridges, and buildings, it's also about people. So those people vote to elect you to office. And, you know, it's just please remember that you work for the people and not the other way around. So if I, for one, do not think that you should raise property taxes if you have a sufficient unreserved fund balance. Otherwise, property taxes will continue to rise, and Texas already has some of the highest property taxes in the nation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Maury Day. Maurice.
Yes, good morning. I'm Maurice Day, sits under Commissioner Steve Aldred. I sit on the board in Milligan, and I am disagreeing with the new property, with the new tax rate, on a simple reason. I stood in this office 3 years ago, and I made an oath, as y'all did when y'all took y'all seats, to do the right thing for the public. Not for personal interest, but for the public interest. And the right thing to do, if we don't need to raise the property taxes, don't do it. But if there's a specific reason for the raising the property taxes, I can see that. But not gouging your public for the wages to support Brazos County. Because it has enough money in already set aside. So we're just gonna continue to keep setting money aside for what? Just to say that we have this leverage to fall back on and never use it to fall back on, and the public suffers? That's not being responsible over the things that the public put you in office to do. And all I say, as an ESD board commissioner, do the right thing for the public.
Okay, thank you. Larry Thompson.
My name's Larry Thompson. I'm here for two reasons. A large number of people in this county live in the county because of lower costs than living in the incorporated areas, and they are already adversely affected by the inflationary increases in gas, food, school supplies, and other necessities. Secondly, the proposed tax rate will add to the unreserved, unexpended funds that already appear to be well beyond prudent levels. My wife and I bought 30 acres on Old Bundick Road in 1988, and being short on funds, we put a mobile home there and started building our home in 2000. We are retired, living on our savings, a couple of retirement funds, Social Security, and royalties from less than 0.5% for oil wells. We also have qualified for the 1D1 tax rate with wildlife management. We are working each year to maintain that. We have homestead exemption on 1 acre. We are over 65, so some of our taxes are capped. So what you decide here today will not greatly affect our tax bill, but that is not the case for people not in our situation. Property taxes in Brazos County on average went up 10%, and your proposed rate of 0.4247 just adds to the budget burden many residents and businesses already feel. The proposed rate will bring in over $15 million in unexpended funds. And I appreciate the prudence of having a reserve for unexpected emergencies. Now, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CPA, but there was a published report that as of September 30, the county had unreserved, unrestricted funds of over $80,500,000. That amount is 67% of the 22 estimated expended funds. I am totally flummoxed that this group would have the audacity to propose adding another $15 million to that already excessive amount. I suggest you reconsider using the no new revenue rate. Then the citizens of the county will have those funds in their pockets to spend for local businesses and help the local economy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure whether I mixed these back in. I know Cynthia Wiley has spoke once. Do you want to, have you already spoke on the issue, or do you want to speak again? I may have.
I'd like to speak again.
Okay, come on.
Cynthia Wiley. Morning again. This talk is regarding the budget. As it's already been expressed, this rate will amass at $15,641,538 amounts of money above last year's budget at the no new revenue rate at 0.429411. That is a gain of there's also a gain of $3,783,609 from new property that was not listed last year. This body collects more money than is needed to pay our bills, and those monies continue to accrue in a kitty. Yet, is that money applied to the next year's budget to help offset the monies collected from your constituents? Your constituents should be saving money, should be storing food, buying medicines, storing water, and purchasing supplemental energy items. When we improve our homes, we become financially penalized because the county assesses a higher value, which brings me back to the fact of this new rate that you're asking for, some would say, well, that's a reduction from last year's rate. But in essence, it's not, because our appraised values went up. So it's kind of it's a catch-22 situation. And I don't know if a lot of people really stop and think about that. A lot of people have mortgages, so it's just built right in. They just go on about their day. It went up $20, $30 a month. But for those of us that live debt-free and have worked super hard to become debt-free, I have to rent my property from this county for over $1,100 a month. So I have a chain, a ball and chain around my neck. I already bought my property. I don't understand why I have to rent it. But I do want to say, I really do appreciate you guys being open and having the opportunity to speak to you guys. I wish I'd been doing this for the last 5 years. It would have been a much better understanding of the budget. We've all looked at the budget and we all have like massive amounts of questions because we don't understand a lot of the categories that you guys have pocketed into things. I know the bulk of our property taxes are school taxes. That has gone up exponentially. And I just wonder who's watching the schools? Who is checking to make sure those monies that we spend or we give into our taxes are being monitored properly and spent properly, given the fact that test scores are plunging and pornography is ramping up in our schools? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Shauna Cox, did you want to speak again? There you go. Okay.
Hello, Shauna Cox. Thank you for letting me speak on this. I was here last year also against the tax rate increase, and I want to say that last year I feel like there were a lot of scare tactics used. You said that there would be things that the county couldn't do if y'all did not raise the taxes, and that didn't happen. What happened is a $20 million surplus. So if that's the case, why do we need to raise the rate again? So what I want to ask you, and I appreciate that we're here, but are we here, all of us here speaking because it's a formality that you have to go through? Or are you actually listening to the citizens, to the taxpayers, to the people that are struggling? I know some of you know my family. We have 8 children. I stay home, I homeschool. We don't have extra money. We don't have businesses. My husband works for the city of Bryan. We have a budget. We work hard to stay in that budget. And I would love for y'all to do the same. And I'd love for y'all to hear us and to really consider what we're saying and to not just check, we listened and keep going. I mean, I know that when I make a decision, usually you can't change my mind, but I'm asking you to hear us. I haven't heard one person get up here and say, we're for this, because we're paying, and I know that y'all are all paying too. But please just hear us. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I believe that is the last that I had on the 9:15, unless there's somebody else that I might have missed when I shuffle through. From my perspective, first of all, I'd like you to, I heard someone say the school district or the school taxes are the bulk of property taxes, and that's accurate. I don't know, Fred, I know you said you paid $800 and something a month for your property. I don't know what portion of that is schools, but probably 2/3 or more is schools. And part of that is that the state, for a long time, failed to fund schools at the same level. At one time, property taxes and other sources of state funds was about 50-50. And then about, 10 or 15 years ago, state funding from other sources remained semi-level while property taxes continued to increase. So the ratio is more like has been more like a 60-40. Property taxes are paying for the bulk of the schools, and other sources has not. The state this last session actually took some action, and I believe they have reduced the tax rate for schools because they're funding schools from other sources, and if the constitutional amendment passes, I think there'll actually be more savings. But when you pay your money to the tax assessor collector, most of that gets passed through and goes to somebody else. It does not come to the county, and we get the blame for it most of the time because it's a big tax bill. But if you look at it, I mean, I encourage everybody, take a look at your tax bill and see where your money's going. It's the bulk of it does not, in fact, when you look at between schools, and if you happen to live in the city, the smallest one is the county. And we have a lot of mandated costs that we have no control over. The state says counties will fund these things, and those are the things we have to fund first. And that's whether it's courts, jails, all of those kinds of things are required. We have no choice about it. We have to fund those things, and those are the first priority. I will tell you, I mean, I know that fund balance grew. We had a lot of projects, some of them road projects, some of them other projects that prior to COVID, we were moving along with getting things done. And when COVID hit, everything pretty much shut down. And so money that was intended to be spent during that 2-3 year period didn't happen. So the bulk of this fund balance that's sitting there actually blew up during that time. And getting cranked back up and getting those projects done has been fairly difficult because there's a lot of supply chain issues, no matter what. Getting people to work. I mean, you know, whether it's employees here, you know, trying to get people hired in that we need, or whether we're trying to get contractors out there and getting it done. We've had a lot of issues trying to get those projects that were scheduled to get done, getting them worked on. So there is a big reason why it blew up as much was COVID and all the things that were that impacted us because of that. And I will tell you, there are things that I have been in discussions with both cities, the university, things like, the medical examiner's office. We've got the money to build that building, and that will get built. That's from ARPA funds, American Rescue funds. It's federal funds that came in, and that's what part of those are dedicated to get done. But once the medical examiner office is done, then we have to put the staff in place. And so those costs, that medical examiner has to be done by the end of 2026. So, but there'll be a pretty big jump in salaries once that happens, and we have to hire on a medical examiner, potentially a deputy, and then other staff to support that. I think it's going to be really a good thing for Brazos County principally, but it'll be a big good thing for the whole region. And it will have revenue coming in because they'll be doing autopsies for other counties around, I think. And then, of course, A&M is, I believe, will help partner with us to actually maybe help fund the medical examiner, the director. So those are things that one of the things that's not in our budget is the Emergency Communications Dispatch Center. It's something that we have had in discussions with the cities for a long time. Just let me take a swallow. I mean, even back when Commissioner Berry was mayor, the two cities and the county were talking at that time about building a dispatch center, and timing wasn't right, money wasn't there, and we never got anything done. But I can tell you that the problem with not having a central dispatch system is, for instance, if something's going on in College Station and Bryan in Brazos County is dispatched by 911. College Station is dispatched by College Station, and the university is dispatched by the university. So if there's something going on in either the College Station or the university, the only way to communicate between Brazos County and Bryan is on the telephone. They're calling back and forth and relaying information. With a central dispatch system, you can have all of those entities dispatched out of one location, And then anything that's going on, each one will know what's going on with the other, and it makes the whole community much safer. So that's something that we've talked about. It looks like the stars have aligned. The CAD system, the computer-aided dispatch, we've always had different systems, and right now, College Station and Brazos County Bryan have the same company that does the computer-aided dispatch, but we're on an older version of it. And so by upgrading what we've got, we can really, without as much cost as far as that portion of it, get together and have a central dispatch system. And that's what I think is really a critical thing that Brazos County needs for public safety. And that's whether it's something violent that goes on, so that all agencies know what's going on and can be on the lookout. I mean, it's really, in my opinion, and the stars are aligned, I believe, that we're all, at least the two cities and the county, have had some really positive discussions about trying to make that thing happen. We funded in our budget about $5 million potentially for that dispatch center, but that dispatch center would probably cost 15, maybe more. So we don't have money to build that right now. And it will probably increase the cost because, it just will. But that's not going to happen this year or next year. But those are the things that if you're not prepared for, it won't happen. There's another thing going on that I had some discussions over the last year and a half, 2 years, is something with mental health. The county deals with it. When someone breaks a law, we end up putting that person in jail if they broke the law, and that's the worst way you can deal with mental health problems. Anybody that's been around and paid much attention knows that we've had several mental health facilities that have come and gone. There's just not, it's not profitable. It's just not profitable. But right now, we're having discussions between the two cities, the county, the hospitals, and the university are all having some discussions about how we can try to solve that problem locally. In my opinion, it's a state problem. They should be the ones that are throwing the money that's going to take to do that, but that hasn't happened, and it probably won't. But all of us, the governmental entities, are trying to figure out how we're going to get that done, but it's going to take money. And if you're not prepared, if you don't have money that you can use toward that, well, it's not going to happen. That's kind of been what has happened to us in the past. We've come up on things that needed to happen, and a good many years ago, we didn't have money, and we couldn't help make those kinds of things happen that I believe all the citizens out in Brazos County, I can't imagine that anybody would not be for trying to, number one, help the mental health or help the safety of the whole community. So those are the things that I look at as county judge, that I've been involved in, that I know over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, maybe more, we're going to need money for. And if you don't have it, then those kinds of things won't happen. The two cities are not going to pick up the cost for those on their own. The university is not going to pick up the cost for it. If we cannot participate in the cost of those things will go away, and we'll spend another 10 or 15 years waiting to see if somebody else is going to do it. That's what I've tried to be prepared for. As county judge, I've tried to look at what's long-term, not just year to year, but what the long-term impact on all of these safety issues might be. So those are really the things that I wanted to say. There's one other thing. There is something called OPEB, which is the other post-employment liability. That is estimated to be $72 million. And what it is really, it's retired employees' health insurance. And that is it is a trust fund that we have begun to work on and we've been putting in $1 million or $2 million a year. but the liability, potential liability, is 72 million. I mean, we could wipe out that whole fund balance if we stuck it over into that OPEB and covered that liability. I don't think that's a wise thing to do. Once it's over there, it's there, and I don't really know what that liability might be. That's what the outside auditors say is our potential liability. So there are things out there that I mean, as county judge, I take a look at all that stuff and see, okay, well, you know, what might it take, and it's not just the snapshot of what this budget and this tax rate looks like. I do try to look at future and you know, the impact that longer term than just 1 year. So I'll let somebody else talk if they're interested.
Nobody else? I have some comments, but
Go ahead.
I will yield my time until everybody else gets to talk.
Go ahead.
So I would like to speak. As the newest member, one of the newest members on the commission, on the court, one of the things that I have noted in my in my 9 months, almost 9 months here on the court, is that I've learned that we have what we call the public-private partnership. That means Bryan, the City of Bryan, the City of College Station, Texas A&M University, and of course the Commissioner's Court and some other entities. And so I have learned, and I was well aware that we all know that I've been in Brazos County for over 40 years. How it looks now is nothing like it looked when I moved here in 1981. It has become a thriving community with both cities, the university, and the county. With that, the objective for me, as a newly person, I ran to serve, but I also wanted to make sure that in this position that we work to provide for the well-being of the community. I hear the comments, I understand, I'm learning also and trying to understand the budget. It's a lot of information, it's a lot of categories as someone spoke about. But what I've also learned that as both cities, the university and the county, as we look at the growth of this community, it has become an extremely attractive area to live in. With that, you have to provide the services. You all want the services. And so some of the things that the judge just talked about, the 911 center, mental health. We don't have a mental health facility. The retired employees fund. All of those things are a part of what makes this community grow. I mean, makes this an attractive community. It makes sure that we provide the services that we need, you know, to make sure that you all, you know, while you want to be in a community that has good roads and bridges. You want sidewalks. You want all of these different things. Now, some of that's not under the purview of the county, but we want a community that provides the services that it needs, that we're well provided for, that we're cared for. And so what I am learning is that as we look at the long-term projection of what this community is going to look like, again, I agree with the judge. We need to be able to provide the services. We've got to be thinking long-term. And as you all know, none of this, you can't build anything, you can't provide anything that doesn't have extensive cost. And so, yes, I am one of those persons who has supported the tax rate that has been proposed, because I am learning that we want to provide these things for the community. We want to be responsive to you, but we also want to be responsible for what we provide to you. And so while I understand, I've been here, like I said, over 40-something years. My daughter went through the BISD from K through 12. Even though I no longer have a child, my child is 40 years old. So I don't have a child in BISD, but I want an educated populace. So therefore, I understand that I want to pay for the children who are in the school system now. I want to pay for whatever we need to do on some level for the city, so that I live in Bryan. So I want good roads, I want sidewalks, I want good things in my community. That is a cost, and we have to, just like someone mentioned, when we are projecting for our budget, we save to pay for cars, we save to pay for home improvement. So on some level, we've got to be thinking long-term and preparing for those things that are going to become forward. When you look at the projection of what is going to happen in this community, we want to be ready to take care of those things that will make this a viable community. I don't know about growth in terms of how y'all feel about it becoming such a viable community that it is also very attractive. So the growth of the community means we got to provide more services. So I hope that you'll understand that some of what we're looking at is how do we provide the services that makes this a community that you want to live in, that you have all of the resources, all of the 911 services when you have a family emergency, that you have those kinds of things that will make your lives well, that take care of your lives, make everything that you do for yourself and your families. We're trying to, as best we can, within the scope of this job, to provide for you the kinds of services that will make your lives better. So thank you.
Anybody else?
Sure.
You want to speak, Steve?
I'll go, yeah. Heard a lot of comments from the dais up here. Heard a lot more comments from people who are here to talk about the tax rate and about the budget. I appreciate that. I think this is the way government's supposed to work. So thank you for taking the time to be here during working hours. Thank you for representing the people who were not able to be here because they're at work trying to make money, to be able to pay for all things, property taxes included. And that's whether you run a business, you own a home or a property, or even if you rent a property. You pay for those property taxes through the rent that you pay. We heard about school taxes, and I'd just like to say that school taxes and what's happening with school taxes is not germane to what we're talking about here. We're talking about fiscal responsibility of Brazos County in dealing with the public funds that we have been entrusted with. So I'm not buying that. I heard that we aren't paying for things because of COVID, but pre-COVID, and everybody was handed this information who's sitting at this dais when we talked about the budget. Pre-COVID, we never spent more than 90%. Pre-COVID, Judge. Never spent more than 10%, 90% of what we budgeted to spend. So I don't think that I can rationalize that one. Medical examiner's office, that's great. Funding the staff, that's great. Why do we need to raise a bunch of money now? Why don't we ask for the money when we need the money? When those people are actually employed. Why are we banking it? The emergency communications dispatch. Great idea, and if the cities and the county want to collaborate in order to improve emergency services, that's great. The statement that you made, Judge, I take exception to, because you say that College Station or because they dispatch independently, A&M because they dispatch independently, in order to know what's going on in those jurisdictions that they're covering, that they have to pick up the phone and have a conversation. Well, I had a conversation just yesterday with the director of Brazos Valley Wide Area Communication. And all of those 800 megahertz radios on BV wax can monitor everything that's going out and everything that is happening as long as somebody's got it turned on to scan, and those radios can actually be, and we're paying for those radios for county use and for the whole system that supports it, but they know what's going on. They don't have to pick up a telephone. And this comes directly from the executive director of the Brazos Valley Wide Area Communication System. So I don't understand that. With the fact that we may spend what you'd estimated $15 million, is that in our for this? Is that in our capital improvements plan? We talk about planning for these types of things, but are these types of things coming up over the next 5 years? Are they in our capital improvements plan?
And why do we want to write a check for those things if it's more prudent to be able to issue certificates of obligation and allow debt service to pay for some of those things because it's a prudent thing to do? We issued a net $34 million of additional bonds this year. We retired about $6 million. So net $34 million. Did you notice that our debt service rate did not increase hardly at all? It stayed almost at 4 cents per hundred. The capacity to do that is out there, and it will continue to build. So I don't understand why we're bankrolling for things that could be logically financed and fiscally responsibly by not using all the tools we have to benefit people here. That aside, if we've got $117 million at the end of the year last year, unassigned fund balance, $15 million is nothing. $21 million is what we're estimated to generate in a surplus this year. Even if we wrote a check for the emergency communications dispatch at $15 million, which you said was the estimate, we'd still have $6 million or at least $5 million additional revenue beyond what we need just this last year. I don't understand that. You talked about when you became judge that things had been ratcheted down so much that it was hard to build back up the capital base that you needed to provide the things that were needed. I understand that. I understand the prior judge who was here and his fiscal conservatism that put Brazos County in a point to where they had to struggle some. That's okay with me, but that's not the case anymore. We have the money now. We're not in that same situation that you were in when you became judge. The OPEB liability. Other employees' benefits, $72 million is the amortized in our CAFR, as you have stated in the press. That's amortized over the period of time that will be used. And we have been paying money into that OPEB, but there's no difference in the OPEB and what we pay into TCDRS for our employees. We pay every year and amortize that. We're not going to go out, and I appreciate the fact that you said it doesn't make sense for us to write a $72 million check to wipe this thing out. We probably shouldn't write a however many hundreds of millions dollars check to completely fund our future TCDRS liabilities. But that $72 million is being treated as we go, and it's prudent to continue to do so. And the other thing is the tax rate, the proposed tax rate that the four of you on this dais voted for will generate, in fact, $2.6 million more than what's needed to fully fund this budget. Why? When we generated a $21 million surplus estimated this year, but we still want to tax people $2.6 million more than what's necessary, not considering the $16 million that we probably won't spend on the 10% rule that we all talked about and I showed to all of y'all last year and showed to all of y'all this year. I don't get it. Why are we asking people for more money than is necessary to do the business on their behalf of Brazos County? It does not make sense. I would like to also remind people who want to speak in our meeting where we have the budget approval and the tax rate that should have started 10 minutes ago. You can speak in on the agenda items if you sign up to do so. And you can also speak at the very first of the meeting under call for citizens' input and/or concerns, and you can also speak at the end of the meeting and call for citizens' input and concern. So stick around. I'm sure that as we get into our regular agenda, these things will be topics of, I hope, collaborative, responsible discussions relative to what we need to do with the tax rate and what we need to do with the budget. Thank you.
So let me just respond. You said, and it's accurate, we traditionally have not spent our full budget at the end of the year. A lot of that is unfilled staff. And, but you don't not fund the staff just because you put the positions in because they're needed and you have to budget for them. You don't stick them in there and say, well, we think we're going to have money left over, so we don't budget it. That makes no sense to me. You have to budget for the positions you put in.
And last year I voted for the budget, but against the tax. I did
well,
not
I'm just trying
vote for
to,
the tax
your
rate.
response to me was that we traditionally do not spend that 10%, and that's the bulk of that. That is where the largest portion is unfilled positions that were budgeted, and for whatever reason, they were not able to fill those positions. So that's the reason, but it would not make fiscal sense to me to not fund those positions because it's anticipated that you're going to need them. Second thing was, you said that you talked to the director of the
BVWAX.
BVWAX. He does not dispatch for us. 911 dispatches for us.
I understand.
And it's dispatched now. So any citizen out there that knows how to get one of those radios can listen and kind of tell what's going on, but they don't know what's going on. They don't, and all of that stuff is not going to be just because the director of the BVWAX can hear what's going on, and they may hear it, but they don't know. And that's where having a dispatch, central dispatch, makes a huge, and I mean, I think you can talk to the city managers or the police departments and find out that that's something that they would like to see, because that really will improve public safety.
I said nothing against the idea.
Okay, well, you just said that you didn't
made a
think
statement.
I made a statement which is accurate, that the dispatch, I'm not talking about BVWAX, I'm talking about the dispatches. If they're going to relay information, they do it over the telephone. That was my statement.
Okay. Well, and let me just go ahead and respond once again. Last year, this year, once again, we all received the budget to actual comparison sheet that was provided to each one of us. And it breaks down specifically per category: salary and benefits, general fund contingency, road and bridge projects, ARPA revenue loss, indigent health care, other departmental support and contract, by category of expenditures that were not spent for 2019, for 2000, which was 22% that we did not spend, 2020, which was 24 million, or 17% of what we did not spend. And it's all categorized and broken out here. It's not all salary and benefits. 24%,
you're not talking
or
about
$32 million in 2021. In 2022, it was $47 million, or 30%.
So you're talking about COVID time.
Yes.
You also talked about the history, and that's what I was talking about. Not during COVID. There were a lot of things that did not get done during the COVID times. A lot of things. So that's the difference. Somebody else wanted any comment?
Salary, okay, but you
Go
said
ahead.
it was salary and benefits, and it's not that. You were all provided a breakdown of the specific categories
history.
of where it was not spent.
Look at the
And I'm telling you, look at the history, and I'll debate you any day, anytime, any day, relative to the actual facts and data as opposed to your perspective, sir. Respectfully.
Judge, I've got some comments I'd like to make. I've spent hours, and poor Nina and Katie have had to deal with me forever. I've been talking directly to our budget and audit staff. If you see them do a face palm while I'm talking, then I've said something wrong. But otherwise, what I have to present is accurate. If you watch this body, when I say this body, I don't mean the 5 people up here. I mean the 8 people that have been up here about the last 5 or 6 years. That's the late Commissioner Sammy Catalina, Commissioner Russ Ford, Commissioner Irma Colley, and us is what I refer to when I say this body. If you watch this body, there's little to zero argument on use of taxpayer money. The spending seems to not really be a conflict. If you watch Tuesday meetings, things pass 5-0 constantly. Budget amendments constantly pass 5-0. That's money being spent. That wasn't in the budget. That's an amendment. So this body has spent money pretty much uniformly as a body without really a lot of nay votes. But what are they spending money on? 75% of that is your justice system, your juveniles, your court system, your sheriffs, constables. I mean, 75% of the budget is stuff, and a lot of it is state mandated stuff that you've got to do. So it's not a real surprise that spending has not been the debate. There's been a few terms thrown around that I think we should all center around. And again, this is in meeting with the auditor to understand this. Money not spent in the year it's budgeted goes to fund balance. So if I'm going to build Mr. White a road, and I know that it's going to be the first year or two right-of-way acquisition, planning, engineering might be even a 3rd year, 4th year maybe we're breaking down and building the road. The money that we know that is going to be spent on Mr. White's road goes into fund balance. That doesn't mean it goes away. That doesn't mean it's a surplus. That means it has a voted on by this body, usually 5-0. It has a use to be utilized later. That doesn't go away if you don't use it in that fiscal year. It adds to your fund balance. When you have the expenses of running a county, and a lot of those things do take time to spend, infrastructure, road and bridge, that sort of thing, you're not going to see that money always spent in the year that it's allocated. 2020 COVID shutdowns absolutely spiked the fund balance. A lot of money was delayed in being spent during those shutdowns. Supply chain, labor, inflation, we don't do all of the work ourselves, we have contractors as well, spike that balance. That is not a surplus. Those are funds designated to be used, awaiting their turn at bat, if you will. If we walk away from utilizing the fund balance for the things that it was 5-0 voted for, then those projects still remain undone. We're going to have to do them later. They will be more expensive later. And you might have someone coming back for a tax increase later for more. So as one of 5, and I really want to leave all personalities and politics out of it. Just looking at the facts, as one of 5, I'd hate for us to leave the things that we said we were going to do in fund balance undone. When we talk about the $21 million fund balance transfer this year, $6 million of that is projects that are incompleted. $9.4 million of that is rolling to road and bridge by a vote of 5-0 by this body. $5.6 million going to fund balance. There's a lot of contingency, there's unknowns, there's open positions that you've got to fund. There's the county, which we all have to agree, the county is exploding. People are moving here, neighborhoods are coming in, it's growing. The 911 emergency communications, I think, is a great use of money. There are vehicles ordered not here. Now think about that. In a county with as many staff as you have vehicles that have been ordered some 2 years ago that have not been delivered. Well, that money doesn't go away. It goes to fund balance. It will be used when the vehicle comes. IT equipment, building supplies, you name it. I mean, these inflation, you name it. These are all things that we're going to be spending money on. Other electeds, so the county commissioners are not the boss of the county. We sit at the same level as the other electeds in the county. We are the purse strings, but when other elected officials need to hire someone, we can't tell them we're not going to allow them to hire someone. We don't have that kind of authority, and we trust them in the office they were elected for. We also pay a share of all these tech dots programs going on, and I think all 5 of us will be happy to agree we didn't do the medians. Did not do the medians. So the argument isn't spending, it's how do you balance the budget. If you break down the fund balance, which I'd like to if you'll permit me, $136 million fund balance. When you take out reserves, including $14 million of ARPA, it's $117 million. When you take out the third year of ARPA, $7.2 million, it's $109 million. When you take out $24 million for contingency and projects begun not completed, $13 million of that is projects begun not completed, you have $85 million. When you take away $28 million, which you keep as an emergency fund, these are for catastrophic uses that the county, and the judge is the head of all emergency response for the county. It's part of that position. When you take away $28 million for emergency fund, you have $57 million left. If you add the $21 million from this year that is not a surplus, but is designated to be spent on items not in this fiscal year, you end up with a $78 million fund balance. The $57 million that was there before you added the 21 is still those things that were voted on that haven't been completed yet. Your capital projects, road and bridge, buildings, the 911 center, $3 million for the medical examiner's office. While utilizing $21 million of ARPA money, we're going to spend $3 million of county money to do that. The storage warehouse, the court, the 472nd court that we're now putting together for civil cases, the criminal justice systems, fiber, health districts, special response vehicles, collaborating with the two cities. These are all things that have been voted on 5-0 most of the time to come up with that fund. You do have some flexibility. What I worry about is taking a large amount out of that fund and what projects are we kicking down the road that were voted on 5-0 that still need to be completed for this county. That said, it's a tough time. And last year I sat in that audience and watched this court not come to a compromise. What I want to propose this year is a compromise. And when we do our 10 o'clock, well, whatever time meeting, I'm going to propose a compromise of a rate of .4097 total. The reason I come to that, and I come to that after hours and hours with our auditor and budget staff, the reason I come to that is the current rate proposed today would ask for the average home in Brazos County's $340,000 value. It would ask for $12 a month more over the no new revenue rate. A compromise would ask for $7 more a month over the no new revenue rate. I think there's room for compromise, and I'd like to see that, and if I get enough votes, then that'll happen. But moving forward, we have important things that we're trying to budget for and services that need to be available for you. That's the plan, to make that happen. But I'd like to see some compromise in the rate, if we could respectfully come to a majority conclusion on that today.
Okay, anybody else got any comments? If not, we will adjourn the public hearing. It's 10:23. We're going to have to spend just a little bit of time to let everybody get back up, and then we will begin the 10 o'clock meeting.